Let me tell you something. Something nobody says out loud, because they're too busy chasing people who already made their decision. But you're about to break that pattern. They didn't walk away because you weren't good enough. They walked away because you made them feel like they were. You chased, you over-explained, you broke your own dignity into tiny pieces and served it to them as proof of your worth. But here's the truth no one tells you. Every time you chase someone, you teach them to run. And they will run. Because nothing repels value more than someone who doesn't see their own. You think loyalty will make them stay. You think effort will change their mind. But in their mind, the one who tries harder always ranks lower. That's not fair. That's just how humans are wired. Chasing is emotional debt. You're overpaying for something they never promised to give. You become noise, background static. The more you reach for them, the more invisible you become, because you're screaming one thing loud and clear: I need you more than you need me. And that's when they switch off, not because they're cruel, not because you're not worthy, but because you've already confessed, without words, that you're not the prize here. You're the one applying, they're the one hiring, and no one respects a desperate candidate. Now pause, breathe, because here's where the shift begins. The moment you stop caring, truly stop caring, you trigger something ancient in the brain. It's called curiosity through absence. It's the black hole effect. You pull them in by pulling away. You stop talking and they start wondering. You stop chasing and they start watching. Because silence unnerves people. It forces them to guess. And what they guess is always louder than what you could have said. That's real power. Not loud, not needy, not desperate, still, cold, silent. The kind of power that doesn't beg. It just waits, and when it waits long enough, everything starts to orbit around it. Understand this: what belongs to you does not need to be chased. It simply needs to feel that your world doesn't collapse without it. And when you master that feeling, when your presence speaks louder than your pursuit, you become magnetic without even trying. This is not a game. This is not a trick. This is how the untouchable move. You're not here to win people. You're here to win yourself. This is where that begins. This is Stoic Spark, where silence becomes strategy and your detachment becomes your dominance. If you're done giving your power away for free, then like this video right now and comment this phrase to tattoo it into your mind. My silence is strategy. Say it again so your subconscious hears you. My silence is strategy. Because once that belief locks in, you'll never chase again. Number 1, the illusion of control. You think control means doing more. Texting first, checking in, explaining your side. You think the more effort you apply, the more likely they'll see your value. Wrong. That's not control. That's emotional gambling, throwing chips on a table rigged against you. Because here's the brutal truth. The moment you try to control someone's perception of you, you lose control of your own reality. Control doesn't come from action. It comes from inaction, from not reacting, from choosing silence, from holding your line. The ones who chase are the ones who fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of being alone, fear of being forgotten. But fear makes you predictable. And predictable people are easy to manipulate, easy to discard. Let them misunderstand you. Let them think you're cold, arrogant, heartless. The people worth having will be drawn to your strength, not your softness. Control is not about changing how they see you. It's about changing how you respond when they don't. You never argue for your value. You prove it by not arguing at all. When you go silent after being disrespected, when you walk away from chaos without flinching, when you choose indifference instead of reaction, you reclaim every ounce of control you thought you lost. They won't say it out loud, but they'll feel it. In the quiet, in the distance, in the shift. That's when curiosity becomes regret. That's when your absence starts screaming louder than your presence ever did. So ask yourself, would you rather be explained or remembered? If you're choosing silence over struggle, comment this again: my silence is strategy. And if you're starting to feel that switch inside, that cold calm replacing the chaos, then you're exactly where you need to be. This is Stoic Spark. Keep watching, the detachment gets deeper. Number 2, energy speaks louder than action. They don't remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel when you stopped saying anything at all. Most people scream with effort. They overcommunicate, overgive, overprove, thinking if they just do more, they'll finally be seen. But attraction doesn't work like that. The most powerful message you ever send is the energy you radiate when you do absolutely nothing. No chasing, no proving, no begging, just stillness, detached, decisive, unbothered. Because when your energy says, I don't need you to complete me, that's when people start needing your presence to feel complete. It's not about being better than them. It's about being indifferent to whether they notice. And that indifference, that emotional self-sufficiency, it triggers something primal in the mind, a kind of hunger that only comes when something is out of reach. Understand this. Words can be manipulated. Looks can fade. But energy, that's real. That's what they feel when your name comes up and you're no longer around. That's what haunts them at night, not the texts, not the effort, but the void you left behind. When you stop pouring yourself into people who never earned it, when you redirect that energy inward, toward your craft, your purpose, your mind, you become untouchable. Your absence becomes a question mark. And people chase question marks more than they chase answers. If you're done explaining and ready to simply exist as the answer, comment it again below. My silence is strategy. Say it like you mean it. Type it with spine. Because from here on out, your energy does the speaking. Your presence becomes the lesson, and your silence becomes the trigger. This is Stoic Spark, and you're only getting colder. Number 3. What happens when you stop caring? The most dangerous version of you is the one who no longer cares, not out of bitterness, not out of pain, but because you've transcended the need for external validation. When you stop caring, everything changes. You stop texting first, you stop waiting on replies, you stop analyzing silence, and instead you become it. That's the shift they never see coming. Suddenly your attention is no longer available on demand. Your energy is no longer a charity. Your time is no longer given just because they asked. And that right there is when they start noticing you. Not because you're louder, but because your silence is unfamiliar. It disrupts the pattern. It forces self-reflection. They ask, did I lose them? Why aren't they chasing anymore? Were they the high-value one all along? Yes, you were. They just never had to realize it, because you made it too easy. Let me tell you something cruel but true. People don't appreciate consistency. They respect distance. They crave the things they can't predict. And when you stop caring, you become that chaos, the storm that doesn't need to announce itself, the absence that feels like punishment. It's not about ghosting. It's about glowing in silence, not blocking them out, but becoming so focused, so unavailable, that your detachment starts echoing in their head louder than your presence ever did. That's when the dynamic shifts. They scroll your page to feel close. They replay the conversations to decode what you meant. They wonder who you are when they're not around. And the irony? They begin chasing the very version of you they used to ignore, because that version finally stopped chasing them. If you feel that shift taking root, if you're starting to withhold what used to be freely given, then like this video and comment it again proudly. My silence is strategy. You are no longer the one reaching. You are the reason others now stretch. This is Stoic Spark. You've stopped caring. and now they can't stop thinking. Number 4. Power in stillness. Stillness isn't weakness, it's weaponized restraint. In a world addicted to noise, stillness is an act of dominance. You walk into a room and say nothing, but people feel you. Not because you're loud, but because you're composed, because your stillness carries weight. Why? Because stillness is control, and control is power. Everyone else? They're busy reacting, overcompensating, trying to prove something, begging to be seen. But you become the one who doesn't flinch. You don't speak to fill silence. You don't move to gain attention. You don't perform for people who haven't earned your truth. That's power, the kind that doesn't need approval to exist. The kind that triggers people without saying a word. People sense it. They can't explain it, but they feel it in their gut. That unsettling calm and that unshakable neutrality. Like standing in front of something ancient, immovable. Most people chase chaos because it distracts them from themselves. But stillness? Stillness is a mirror, and when you become still, you force people to confront their own instability. That's why they're drawn to you and terrified of you at the same time. Think about it. Why do people stalk your silence but ignore your effort? Why do they double back after you go quiet, but dismiss you when you're present? It's because stillness is rare. Stillness is discipline. Stillness signals certainty, and certainty is magnetic. You're not emotional, you're efficient. You're not ignoring them. You've outgrown the need to respond. You're not silent out of weakness. You're silent because you're calculating. And they can feel it. They feel the distance. They feel the upgrade. They feel that you've stepped into something bigger than them. Something they can't access anymore. You've become still, but not stagnant. Silent, but not passive. Detached, but more focused than ever. This is the kind of presence that changes rooms, not because you demand attention, but because your aura commands it. Let them talk, let them assume. Your power comes from not reacting, from not defending yourself to people who can't comprehend your value. The lion doesn't explain to the sheep, the storm doesn't warn the clouds, and the high-value man doesn't justify his stillness to the insecure. If they're confused by your silence, let them stay confused. It's not your job to clarify. You've stepped out of the game. You've stopped playing the role of the pleaser, the fixer, the overthinker. Now you observe, you build, you evolve. And here's the secret they'll never understand. The man who moves the least influences the most, because his stillness isn't absence, it's presence, in its most refined form. So if you're done being the echo and ready to become the silence, then like this video and write it down again in the comments below. My silence is strategy. Say it again like you own it. This is Stoic Spark. Stillness is not your pause, it's your power. Number 5, rejection is a mirror, not a sentence. Most people treat rejection like a wound, something to grieve, something to fix. But in truth, rejection is just a mirror. It reflects who you were in their eyes, not who you are. You're not broken. You're not discarded. You were simply seen through a lens you didn't control. And here's where it gets cold. That lens is never accurate. It's shaped by their traumas, their preferences, their insecurities. It has less to do with your worth and everything to do with their perception, which means it was never personal, even when it hurt like hell. Rejection is not a verdict. It's not a sign that you're not good enough. It's a signal that your energy didn't align with someone too distracted, too immature, or too blind to see it. Let them go. Let them choose less. Let them run toward chaos. Let them reject peace in favor of drama. Your job isn't to convince someone to see you. Your job is to become so certain of who you are that rejection doesn't shrink you. It sharpens you. Most people take rejection and internalize it. They make it their identity. I'm not lovable. I'm not enough. I'm always the one left behind. That's emotional slavery. That's how you hand your self-worth to people who never earned it. Here's what you do instead. You pause, you process, then you reframe. You say, this wasn't a loss, this was clarity. You say, their absence makes room for better presence. You say, if they could walk away, they were never real enough to stay. And then you evolve. You build something colder, sharper, cleaner. You stop negotiating your worth and start demanding peace. You stop texting people who ghosted you. You stop explaining your standards. You stop proving your heart to people who bring confusion instead of clarity. Because now you see rejection for what it really is. Not punishment, not failure, just misalignment. And sometimes a necessary one. Sometimes rejection is the universe editing your life before you even know what scene needs to be deleted. So don't chase what's running. Don't defend your soul to people who mock it. Don't dilute yourself to be digestible. Let them reject the full version of you. Let them underestimate you. Let them walk away thinking you were the fool. Because here's what they never expect. They never expect you to stop caring. They never expect silence instead of arguments. They never expect indifference instead of apology. And when you give them that, their rejection becomes their regret. That's when they scroll your feed quietly. That's when they start bringing your name up to mutuals. That's when they second-guess their own decisions in the silence you left behind. And guess what? You won't be waiting. You won't be reacting. You'll be gone, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, because rejection didn't destroy you. It refined you. Now read this line carefully. Your response to rejection defines your level of power. The louder you react, the weaker you look. The quieter you become, the more they obsess. Let your absence haunt. Let your growth speak louder than any closure they never gave you. If you're done begging for validation and ready to become rejection-proof, comment this one last time in all caps, "My silence is strategy." Etch it into your identity. Because rejection was never the end of your story. It was the clean break your power needed. Number 6, the scarcity signal. Human psychology is simple. We want what we can't have, and we chase what isn't always available. The moment you're constantly accessible, you're no longer seen, you're expected. Your background noise, your routine, and routine never creates obsession. Scarcity does. People don't value water when it's overflowing. They value it in a desert. The same applies to your presence. If you're always giving, always responding, always available, you become emotional tap water, abundant, taken for granted. But the second you pull back, you become oxygen, unseen, but deeply felt. And now they need you to breathe. This is the scarcity signal. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about becoming someone whose time, energy, and presence are rare by default. Because you're building, because you're focused, because you're not trying to convince anyone of your value anymore. You think people ignore you because you're not impressive. No, they ignore you because you've made yourself too easy to reach. They feel no urgency, no risk of loss, no pressure to keep you. Scarcity flips the frame. It forces them to realize they never had a guarantee with you, that every text they ignored, every call they delayed, every moment they thought you'd wait, was time running out. And once you disappear without warning, once the tap shuts off and you go cold, they scramble. They dig through old messages. They test you with casual pings. They try to reel you back in, just to make sure they still could. That's not love, that's control. Your silence is proof they never had it. So stop thinking being constant earns you respect. It earns you expectation, obligation. They'll check in when they're bored. They'll reply when it's convenient, because you're always there. Now reverse it. Let them experience the void. Let them wonder what you're doing, who you're becoming. Let them guess. Because the guessing game is where obsession begins. People can't crave what's fully known. They crave mystery. They crave absence. They crave the energy that says you never had full access, just a preview. And when you master that energy, they feel the shift, not because you said something, but because you stopped. You stopped explaining, you stopped initiating, you stopped showing up where you weren't seen. Now they chase the ghost of the version you used to give freely. But that version evolved. He no longer lives in reaction, he lives in purpose. So ask yourself, are you going to be the person they scroll past, or the one they stalk in silence, wondering what they did wrong? If you're stepping into your scarcity era, comment this once more like a command to yourself. My silence is strategy. Say it with detachment. Say it like you mean it, because the rarer you become, the more unforgettable you get. Number 7, replacing desperation with purpose. Desperation is a leak in your soul, and the more you feed it, the weaker you become. It's the energy of someone who's forgotten they have something to build, something to lead, something to become. That's why you beg. That's why you cling. That's why you replay conversations in your head, hoping to find the one sentence that would have changed everything. But it's not the sentence, it's the state you were in. You were operating from lack, from a deep, invisible emptiness, and they could smell it. Desperation repels. It's loud, it's hungry, it's uncomfortable to be around. Because deep down, it signals this. I don't value myself enough to walk away. And that is death in this world. Now listen carefully. Purpose is the antidote. When you replace desperation with purpose, your entire frequency shifts. You no longer wake up wondering if they texted. You wake up wondering how fast you can close the gap between you and your goals. You stop thinking, how do I get them back? And start asking, how do I become too powerful to ever feel this weak again? That's the difference between begging and building. Begging feeds the ego. Building feeds the soul. Because here's the cold truth. No one respects the man who needs validation to function, but everyone watches the one who walks in silence, building in shadows, while the rest are starving for likes and replies. Your attention is currency, and if you keep spending it on people who never earned it, don't be surprised when your self-worth feels bankrupt. But the moment you pull your energy out of chasing others and reinvest it into building yourself, you become rare, and rare becomes valuable. You stop being available 24/7. You stop over-explaining your boundaries. You stop apologizing for having standards. Now you're building systems, you're stacking skills, you're pouring your emotions into structure, into legacy. And people feel it. They feel that you're no longer reachable on their terms. You've become mission first, detached from approval, obsessed with alignment. Suddenly, the people who took you for granted sense something's different. You're not cold, you're just unavailable. You're not distant, you're just disciplined. You're not ignoring them, you're just gone. They try to bait you back into that old version of you. The one who responded instantly, who always made time, who wore his heart on his sleeve and bled for people who never offered a bandage. But he's dead, and they'll never meet him again. Because you've upgraded. You're no longer chasing people. You're chasing a vision, and vision doesn't need validation. It doesn't pause for distractions. It doesn't care who left because it's too focused on who you're becoming. That's the essence of masculine power, the ability to delay validation and pursue something bigger than yourself. That's what they can't understand, and it drives them insane. See, purpose is a black hole. It pulls in everything around it. Once you're orbiting purpose, people can feel the gravitational pull of your discipline, and that energy is addictive. Not because you asked to be admired, but because you became undeniable. Now people remember you without you reminding them. They check in on you without you reaching out. They think about you not because you asked to be missed, but because you walked away without making noise. That's what rattles them. You didn't chase, you didn't beg, you disappeared into something bigger, and now they wonder if they ever mattered at all. Let them wonder, because you're not here to convince people to stay. You're here to become so powerful, so disciplined, so untouchably focused that losing you feels like a curse. And they will feel it. The regret, the silence, the realization that the man they ignored was the one building the empire they'll never be part of. So the next time your ego whispers, text them, or explain yourself, win them back. Remember this: desperation is loud, purpose is silent. Desperation wants to be seen. Purpose doesn't care who's watching. Desperation asks for attention. Purpose becomes attention. You are no longer chasing humans. You are chasing God-level execution. You are building something they will never have access to again. So if you're done with emotional begging and ready to operate from purpose, comment the phrase one final time: my silence is strategy. Let it be a code, a shield, a lifestyle. You don't need them to come back. They need to realize you never stopped evolving. And now, you're out of reach. Number 8, your silence is a message. You don't need to speak to be understood. You don't need to announce your departure for it to be felt. And you don't need to explain your worth for it to echo, because silence is the message. In a world addicted to noise, the man who goes quiet becomes the loudest presence in the room. He becomes mystery, he becomes tension. He becomes the unfinished sentence they keep reading in their heads. You used to send paragraphs, you used to argue your value, you used to over-communicate with people who barely deserved a glance. Now you send nothing. You say nothing, and it speaks more than your words ever did. Silence is psychological warfare, subtle, clean, and deeply unnerving. It doesn't attack, it exposes. It shows people exactly what life feels like without your presence, without your energy, without your loyalty. They expected noise. They expected a breakdown. They expected you to chase, to explain, to fight for their attention. Instead, you gave them the abyss. And what most don't realize is this: silence is not the absence of communication. It is a form of high-level, emotionally intelligent communication. It says, I no longer reward confusion with clarity. I don't explain myself to anyone not qualified to understand me. I am not emotionally available to those who treat me as optional. When you go silent, you hand the mirror to them. Now they start wondering. Now they hear echoes of things you never said. Now they question whether you even care anymore. And the most powerful part? They don't know. They don't know if you've moved on, or if you're just too focused to respond. That ambiguity eats away at them. That uncertainty creates the exact psychological grip you used to beg for. Only now, you've become the one being studied, watched, decoded, because silence flips the script. It flips the power dynamic. It creates a tension no text could ever match. You want respect? Withdraw it. You want clarity? Stop giving it to people who've only ever weaponized your honesty. You want peace? Choose it over pointless conversation, and if they cared, they'll feel it. Not because you said anything, but because you said nothing at all. People don't realize what they've lost when you cry. They realize it when you no longer look their way, when you become neutral, when your energy stops checking in, when your name shows up on their phone, and they know you're not texting, you're just not there. That's the most terrifying message you can ever send. Total unapologetic absence, because silence holds a mirror to their behavior, and most people can't survive the reflection. They want a reaction, they want closure, they want access to the emotional doors they once kicked down, but those doors are gone now, locked, sealed, quiet. Let them stare at the closed door. Let them replay the sound of it shutting without a single word, because when you move in silence, you become unforgettable. You're not explaining anymore. You're not defending anymore. You're not leaking energy through meaningless conversations. You're building, you're focused, you're mentally fortified, and if someone asks where you went, Tell them nothing. Let them guess, because mystery creates demand, and silence creates mystique. You're not cold, you're controlled. You're not distant, you're disciplined. You're not ignoring, you've evolved. When they tell others about you, they won't talk about what you said. They'll talk about how you vanished, how you didn't beg, how you didn't flinch, how you stopped being accessible and became unforgettable. Let that be your new language. Let silence become your weapon. Let your absence do what your presence could never teach. They'll hear the silence long after your voice fades. They'll feel the void long after the conversation ends. And that feeling, that space you left behind, will echo louder than anything you ever could have said. If you've felt this transformation, if you're already seeing how your silence creates pressure, then type this one final time like a code of conduct. My silence is strategy. And don't just type it, live it. Because from now on, you don't chase attention, you command focus. And you do it without a single word. Number 9, the untouchable aura. There comes a moment when you stop waiting to be chosen, when you stop hoping to be understood, when you stop bending your soul to fit someone else's level of awareness. And in that moment, a new version of you is born. Colder, clearer, unreachable. This version doesn't chase, he doesn't over-explain, he doesn't entertain things beneath his mission. He is untouchable. Not because he's built walls, but because he's built standards. Silent, unapologetic, unavailable to chaos. This is the aura of the man who's done shrinking. You see it in his posture, you hear it in what he doesn't say, you feel it in the way he simply doesn't need you. That kind of power isn't taught. It's forged through betrayal, through silence, through solitude. You earn it when you no longer seek to be liked. You earn it when you stop asking for closure. You earn it when you sit with your own emptiness and build something solid in its place. This aura dash, it repels the needy. It confuses the insecure. It disturbs the manipulative, because it doesn't react. It simply exists and forces others to rise or leave. And those who leave, let them. You don't explain your glow to those who once overlooked your fire. You don't slow your pace for those who couldn't walk with your silence. You are not bitter. You are not vengeful. You're just untouchable, because you've finally realized what you are without them. You don't need to text. They're already thinking about you. You don't need to post. They're already watching. You don't need to speak. Your absence is already screaming in their mind, and they'll never admit it. But your detachment ruined them, because it proved that you were never the dependent one. You were the foundation, the center, the piece they didn't recognize until they lost it. Now they want it back. But that version of you doesn't exist anymore. You didn't get bitter, you got smarter. You didn't chase, you evolved. You didn't play the game, you left the arena. And now, you walk different. You speak less, you calculate more. You're calm, not passive. You're distant, not dismissive, and you're emotionally sovereign. And that is the rarest trait of all. Let them wonder what happened to you. Let them ask around. Let them scroll and guess. You are a ghost with a legacy. Not gone, just unreachable. Because now you live at a frequency too high for their games. You've stopped performing. You've stopped proving. You've stopped participating in your own devaluation. And from this level, they can't touch you. Not emotionally, not mentally, not spiritually. This is what happens when you choose discipline over drama, purpose over pity, peace over attention. This is when you become the one they never get over. Not because you begged to be remembered, but because you walked away without saying a word. They don't chase you because you're perfect. They chase you because your absence makes them confront everything they're not. Let them chase. You're too focused to notice. Now, if this spoke to something inside you, if you felt something harden, sharpen, awaken, then, like this video right now, and for the last time, write this phrase in the comments like a weapon. My silence is strategy. Let it be the final version of you they never recover from. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because we're not here to be liked, we're here to be legendary. This was Stoic Spark, disappear with purpose.